we misplaced the mic about a year ago when we were moving, and I just haven't gotten around to getting a new one. So, hey, everyone on YouTube, this is the live stream, The Way of Christ 2. We're going to be having a discussion on making contact with the supernatural, what that means, and what potentials there are if we actually allow ourselves to examine and study the phenomena and sort of suspend our disbelief, suspend our resistance to it, and just sort of try to essentially interface with a potentially conscious universe. And we're just discussing, I'm just answering a couple quick questions here that might be helpful. I've been so sick lately. Why? This is something I'm going to try to be careful how I say it, because, you know, there's all these fascist 1984 censorship police that will try to stop me from telling you guys things that are absolutely true. Real quick story. When the Spanish flu broke out, was that early 1900s, late 1800s? No, early 1900s, right? So one of the things they did with the Spanish flu is, while it was going on, because it was so uncanny, because this is what's interesting about the Spanish flu. Many people don't know this because it's not widely broadcast for a specific reason, I think, is people were getting sick simultaneously in different areas of the world. This is before widespread commercial airplane use. And so they struggled a little bit because they're like, well, how is it traveling so quickly and how is it occurring simultaneously? Right now, someone would argue, well, the virus had a long incubation time. But you have to understand how not in the air we were. Thank you very much. These are very kind compliments, and I will try to live up to them. How much we weren't, like, there wasn't a lot of movement that fast that could warrant this very quick spread, right? So it spread kind of like it would spread today with how many planes fly all the time. So what they started to do, you know, germ theory was a thing then, but like they didn't quite understand it. So they tested germ theory in a variety of ways, where they would take pus or blood from one person and inject, not blood, but pus from one person, inject it into another person. They'd have one person talk or cough like a foot from another person's face. And no matter what, they could not get the other person sick. It never happened. So, and they did extensive studies during the Spanish flu, and they could not find one experimental case, like where they were studying it, where one person got another person sick. Right. And so at the time, it kind of flipped germ theory on its head a little bit, because they couldn't reproduce these theories. And it's a Turtle Beach. It's just not too expensive, all around decent headphones. So I won't go too much longer with this, but it's important. So at the same time that the Spanish flu was occurring, we were electrifying the grid across the entire world. Right? It was like really the first electrifying of the grid. Okay. This is interesting. And at the same time, we were having a lot of solar impact, and we were receiving a lot more of it. So the magnetic field might have been weaker at the same time. So we're getting a lot of that. So we're getting a lot of electrification from the sun. We're getting a lot of electrification from these new technologies. Now, radiation can give you flu-like symptoms. Cosmic radiation, radiation from the sun, radiation from electrical lines. This can give you flu-like symptoms. This is proven, right? This is scientific research. I'm not just pulling this out of up top of my head. They did this in multiple studies, that you get flu-like symptoms from radiation, and there can be multiple varieties of radiation. So at the same time that we're electrifying the grid and we're getting more radiation from the sun that's going all the way through and hitting us, people are also, all of a sudden, people are spontaneously across the world getting what they call Spanish flu. And this 4 years ago thing, the same thing happened. There was a re-electrification of the grid with 5G, and we're getting increased radiation from the sun. And many people are getting flu-like symptoms. It's at least worth investigating. So why are you getting sick? You know, why do those people that go on that plane and everyone came down with flu-like symptoms? Because they're potentially they were going up above multiple layers of atmosphere, and so they were getting even more radiation. And possibly it's not because everyone got sick with the same virus, but instead they all got a little bit too much radiation and got flu-like symptoms. Yeah, it's a really nice pen. Okay, so let's discuss a little bit about what we're going to be talking about here today. But like I said, we'll weave in and out with questions. So we got a nice turnout here. We got 95 people on there. We got 4 people on the YouTube. Very nice, just about 100. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and leave your questions in. I won't be able to get to all of them because I might be talking and I'll miss a couple, et cetera, but I'll try to get to as many as I can. So yeah, if you'll give me a little bit of a reminder of the fine structure constant, because I have had a lot to say about this in the past, but you'll just have to give me a quick brush up on it. Yeah, I didn't say Earth's radiation was making people sick. Sun radiation, and like synthetically created radiation. So I've been discussing a lot about UFOs, UAP, Bigfoot, ghost, poltergeist, might be a part of a larger ecosystem of a higher phenomenon that has like an entire ecosystem and like a mechanics, like a system, okay? And that so many of the stories throughout thousands of years of recorded history on these supernatural experiences, they all seem to have a lot of the same same qualities and variables. You know, a really stark one is, for instance, fairy circles, which were almost identical to crop circles. Fairy circles happened, you know, hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years ago. And then crop circles are what we get today. And there's some connection, people believe, to the flying saucer UFO and the creation of these things. Possibly they're landing, possibly they're using some sort of technology to impress a force upon the crops and create these symbols, which are communications to human beings. You know, lots of people have thought that. And so we have the fairies that were directly connected to the fairy circles, and then we have the UFOs that are at least marginally connected to the crop circles. Although, you know, I'm only saying that because it's not exact all the time, but everyone knows that the UFOs and aliens have often been connected to crop circles. So the next similarity, these are all really important. So the next similarity, well, the crop circles are real. There are circles that are impressed upon crops. The question becomes, how'd they get there? I'm not saying that people couldn't have made them, but for you to say crop circles aren't real and UFOs aren't real, that's not true. Anytime there's an unidentified flying object in the sky, it's there. The question is, what is it? Right? They've been picked up on radar. They've been pursued by jet fighters. They've been seen by regular people. It's an unidentified flying object, or it might be more appropriate to say an unidentified aerial phenomenon. And there's a reason they changed that, because some of these aren't physical, right? But you can see them. So they're real. The question is, what are they? What manifestation are they? To say that they're definitely aliens would be too much, right? But to argue if they're real or not, it's an unidentified. So it's an unidentified thing that we're witnessing. Of course it's real. We're not saying what it is. To say UFO is not directly connected to saying it's a spaceship or an alien, right? It's just unidentified. It's in the air, right? It's an object. It's flying, right? So I think beyond all the things we have to figure out about what these things are they man-made? Are they spiritual? This person said, you know, they got to be demons, but, you know, I would at least go as far as saying that some of these situations, across time also have similarities that point to demonic as we know it in recorded scripture and just recorded, because it's not just these religious texts that have talked about these demonic forces, right? Um, and cultures all around the world discuss these sort of trickster entities that live between, we would call them dimensions now, but they maybe said worlds. And some of them have bad intentions. Some of them are just like chaos. Some of them are just kind of like randoms. You know what I mean? Like they just, maybe they'll mess with you one day and do you a favor the next day, and you don't really know what their motivations are. And some seem to be more angelic and helpful, but they all again seem to be fitting into the same ecosystem, the same class of beings or phenomena. Now, I'm not going to go because I've already talked about this. I don't want to waste your time or my time in going over this again. I've done videos before. They are on YouTube. I've done some smaller versions of it on TikTok about all the things this could be. We've already discussed that. One I'll add, because I did think about this the other day, is that we might be dealing with something that's a phenomenon that appears in a way that our brains can't understand, and then we take something from the back of our head and our brain tells us what we're looking at based on our own cultural context. Real quick, this person says, isn't this a flat earther guy? I have always and consistently said, I don't believe the earth is flat. I have only been a part of that conversation as a median between the flat earthers and globe earthers, because I know that I don't know what shape the earth is, because I haven't been up there. It's interesting to see so many people continually try to throw that on me and also use it in a derogatory way to try to make me look stupid and insinuate people who suspect the earth is flat is stupid, when we all know that's not the case. These aren't stupid people. These are people that have been that are aware that we're being lied to about a lot of things. Antarctica, space station, there's a lot of inconsistencies and strange things happening, and they deserve to be questioned. That's all I've ever done. And you've got a lot of people who will say, isn't the guy a flat earther? Well, no, I'm not a flat earther. I've never been a flat earther, but I have argued their case, because in their case are valuable questions that are worth asking, right? So remember to listen when people are talking, and don't make assumptions about them, because it's unfair and it wastes everyone's time. So, as I was saying, along with all the other potentialities, government psychotronics, government aircraft, potential supernatural, as in maybe there's other layers of the universe and reality that we are not presently aware of or not usually aware of, that sometimes we pick up on because of the states of mind we're in, or because they're able to enter into this reality, at least visibly and maybe sometimes physically. We have no idea what we're dealing with here. A lot of people like to pretend they know what the universe is and how the reality works, and they'll tell you assuredly, right? They're either trying to sell you a bridge in Brooklyn or Jerusalem, right? They're either trying to sell you a material secular explanation of reality, or they'll tell you a religious spiritual one. And none of them know what the fuck they're talking about. You want to know why? Because no one knows what they're talking about. No one has any idea what's going on here, right? We make our assumptions, we test things, but we understand such a small fraction of what's happening here. We might be the bottom level of 100 levels of intelligent civilizational organization. Really think about that. There's clearly a breakaway culture right in front of us. There's a whole class of people that live completely different than us and are not even affected by the changes in the market or the price of gas or any of that. And they have access to all sorts of technology and information that we have never heard before, and we've never experienced the technology before. There's a class of people on the planet right now, you might have even seen some of their faces, that have access to a completely different level of civilization. Is it possible that there's one above them, and a one above them, and one above them? All right. That's just from the standpoint of an intelligent civilization, not to mention all the different forms of matter, energy, forces, the expanse of all of reality. There are so many things we do not understand. And everyone's trying to sell you something that says we've got it all figured out. You might have 0.01% figured out, right? Christianity is not a total explanation of reality. Mainstream science is not a total explanation of reality, not even close, not even it's a fraction of a percentage of an explanation of everything that's happening here. So really put that into perspective when you're engaging with reality and you're trying to contemplate what's going on here. Understand that everything you've ever been told probably still represents just a fraction of the actual truth of what's happening here. Really let your mind expand, almost like pretend like you're a sci-fi writer imagining what the world actually is. And all the possibilities and all the things you can come up with, all of those things are possible. If you can think of it in your head, it could happen. People say when pigs fly. Really, we know with our technology now that it's actually plausible that we could make pigs fly. Well, one, we could just strap a rocket booster or whatever to their back. But we know that as we get closer to understanding how genes work, maybe we could actually manipulate genes over time and give them wings. Who the hell knows? What I'm saying is, if you can say it, if you can think it, it's possible. Why is it possible? Because there's 18 subatomic particles. And then there's the board, those are the pieces of the game that we're playing. Okay? 18 subatomic particles. Then we have the game board. We'll call it space-time. And then we have the rules. We'll call them the fundamental forces of reality. Now, taking those 3 variables and then obviously the 18 subvariables, and then we'll say the 2 to 4 subvariables of the forces, and you mix and match those. Do you think you can mix and match those in such a way that you could make flying pig? Of course. Of course. So think of reality from that base, from that ontological level. You've got these subatomic particles that can be formed into all of the different elements and structured in all the ways that we already know they can be structured, plus a bunch of other ways that we don't know yet that they can be structured, and give rise to essentially any phenomenon that you can imagine. Okay? So now take into perspective and context UFOs, poltergeists, and all this other stuff. It's not so simple. And anyone who scoffs or laughs at it doesn't know what they're talking about. Anyone who has already selected, oh, it's aliens, oh, it's just spiritual, oh, it's just the government, oh, it's just our own manifestations, our collective unconscious projections, like Jung would say, or Nelson would say. Cynthia Nelson, she's not as well known, but I think her work, and then I think there's another woman that said something really amazing about how alien abduction represents our generational trauma from colonialization. Very interesting stuff. Also, again, a psychic projection of mass consciousness. But if anyone's picking one of those and saying this has got to be it, you're not doing your homework. This seems to be much more complex, because although many fit certain patterns over time, there's other whole sets of these things that fit different patterns. It's like the difference between a ghost and a poltergeist. Ghost seems to be something that's already there, like a person will come and they'll experience it, and maybe they move out of the house because they're scared, and then somebody else moves in and they see the same ghost wearing the same clothes. Right, and I don't think those two families are running a con on the newspapers. So they are having an experience, right? The question is, what kind of experience are they having? And then you have a situation where there was no paranormal activity, but then someone in the house seems to bring something along with them. And you get slamming doors and cupboards and all that. And we call that poltergeist, which is a psychic or emotional projection of somebody's energy on the physical world that almost takes on a pseudo or semi-intelligent form outside of the body. Right, so those are 2 completely different sets of explanations to the phenomenon. But today we're going to be focusing on our effect on it. And we're going to be talking about performing miracles. Yeah, Christopher. Sophia cast out the demiurge, the proton cast out the electron, and hit it in the cloud. Yeah. This is what Sophia is all about. It is this sort of agitation of the space-time, the infinite or near infinite potential of creation. which is what Sophia is, because Sophia is the womb, the mother who gives birth, which is space-time giving birth to particles through waves, agitating space-time and manifest reality. So, yeah, we're going to be focusing on miracles. This is going to be a really, really important conversation. And I don't think it's going to go on for very long. And it's not going to be backed by a bunch of scientific evidence or anything. So I'm going to do something I don't usually do, and it's going to be to ask all of you to have a little faith in the possibilities of reality. As I just discussed, imagining the game board, the pieces of the subatomic particles, the game board of the space-time, and the rules of fundamental forces. I want you to not only open your mind as wide as you can to all the possibilities of what the implications of supernatural events are, as in the implications of what we're capable of through them. And I want you to try to find a little light inside of you that has the faith to believe that we can do far greater things than Christ, as he told us that he would. That we may be able to produce food out of our robe, that we may be able to lay our hands on someone who is ill and to heal them, that we may be able to live directly off the light of God to energize us and not have to eat, that we may be able to prophesy, that we may be able to see the future. I made a video the other day about one instance that I had where I was given a future event in my dream. It was 5-minute conversation verbatim. Maybe not 5, maybe 1, maybe 2 minutes, somewhere in between there. It was verbatim. The inflexes, the pauses between words, every single word, right down to a T. Yeah, we're not talking about Jesus, friend. Jesus is Isus in Greek, and Jesus wasn't his name. The return of the Son of God, yeah, is most likely the mini nova of the sun. But we're talking about Christ to be anointed, which is what Christ means. And Jesus Isus is a word that has a meaning. It's not a name. And these are all different things. So we have to sort all those things out. What we're talking about is enlightenment. We're talking about Buddhahood, Bodhisattva, Christ, the Ubermensch, Adam Kadmon. The principal idea that we can rise above this mundane physical existence and do greater things than what we've been told we can do based on what's humanly possible, or our physical limitations, or our intellectual limitations, okay? So, Afros, we're not here to have you give us a side teaching that doesn't make sense. This is really important that you just listen, you know? And there's a reason they mention light, and it's not because of the sun. But, you know, it's like, just ask questions regarding what we're talking about, but don't try to bring into a different direction. Be here with us. So, thank you everyone for the gifts. I want all of you to try something. And I'm not trying to be rude, Afros, at all. I respect you 100%. I just want to make sure that what I'm about to say really hits home. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I only want you to consider what I'm about to say, because I think it's so absolutely important that we tap into this. I love you, brother. And thank you. So I want everyone here to possibly get up tomorrow morning and play a little game. Play a little game where you act as if, even after you've woken up, that you're still in a type of dream. Not that you're in a sleeping dream, like you're in bed and you're still dreaming. You don't want to trick your brain into that. But play a game that when you wake up, you've entered into a different state of dreaming, right? A higher state where you might be, as the characters in your dream are a projection of you, you might be a projection of a higher consciousness and amongst a myriad of projections of a higher consciousness that dreams. And I don't know anybody that's lucid dreamed here before, but once you start lucid dreaming and you're able to stabilize in the dream, like sometimes when you start off, you're lucid dreaming and then you instantly wake up, or the dream gets really crazy and a dream person asks you for a wild favor and you start helping them and they put you on an adventure and you forgot that you were dreaming. Once you start to get good at stabilizing the lucid dream, you can have a lot of fun, right? You can have a lot of fun with, like, what I used to do after, I flew for a while. I would do things like I'd go up to the characters in the dream and I'd be like, hey, did you know that you're just a projection of my imagination? And then I'd see what they do. Yeah, that's excellent. You're able to do it nightly. I haven't been there in a while because once I got to a pretty comfortable state of it, I started getting to the place where I was actually being pulled out of my body every night. And it felt like the people that explain abduction. And it felt like there was another intelligence in the room that was bringing me somewhere. And so I would just force myself to come back down. And then I would do things that would ground me, um, so that I wouldn't have the experience anymore. So I've been avoiding the experience on the nightly basis, because it's gotten really intense. But I do need to get some courage and go back in. But so some of the things, yeah, in Afros, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You've met people that you dreamed about. You know what I mean? And like, when there's enough people that have had these experiences where you have a dream and then the dream happens in real life afterwards, or you meet a person you haven't met in the dream, and then you meet the person, people can scoff all day at the people that have these stories. But once you get thousands and tens of thousands of the same stories, it's hard to laugh at it anymore. Something is happening. And that's what I think we need to be examining. Yeah, deja vu might actually be but it's just a fragmented memory of a dream, and we don't realize it was actually a dream we had that originally gave us the memory that would occur in the future. Right? That would be one explanation of deja vu. So, I would ask these characters in the dream, hey, or tell them, hey, do you know that you're just a projection of my imagination? And they'd be like, what? No way, man. Like, it was like kind of wild. And I would, kind of have a dialogue with myself. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Every single thing in my dream manifests out of me. And so each piece is a piece of me. And so each piece must have a meaning. And so then I started asking the characters in my dream world, what do you mean? And some would tell me, oh, I represent this about you. I represent that about you. Right? And then I started having a dialogue with the dream itself, where I would be like, show me something I don't know about myself or about the world. And then the dream would change, or I would see a flash of light in a tunnel or a house. And I started engaging with the whole thing as if I was engaging with the larger me of the conscious and subconscious. Okay. Yeah, Hefty, you don't need to direct the conversation. Just listen. Because if you're paying attention, you know that I'm discussing how we're going to connect dreams and reality. And I will answer your question on Elohim. But let me get this point, because this is what we're doing, is we're connecting dreams and reality. Okay. So all the things I just explained to you, now don't go around talking to regular people telling them that they're just a projection of your imagination. One, that's not true, and two, people will think you're out of your fucking mind. But what I want you to do is start interfacing with the reality like it's a dream, but a higher level dream, and engaging in a sort of dialogue. You don't have to talk out loud. You don't have to talk to yourself. Or consider the possibility that this whole place is alive and conscious, and that there is a mystery to be solved, and an adventure to embark on that isn't about paying taxes and dying. That there's potentially a way more important thing to be doing here. And it's not necessarily that you're destined to do it, but it's like you're here and you're aware and conscious of your experience. And this is a really jaw-droppingly unexplainable experience that we created these systems to try to be like, well, this is how the universe was created. Well, you know, God is kind of has a plan. Put those to the side for a minute and see the world raw, unprocessed by some sort of philosophy. And then I want you to give yourself new rules to play by. Break the concept of humanly possible. I'm not telling you to try to jump off a roof and fly, right? Because the reason I say all those things when I double check myself is not because I think that anyone here is going to take what I'm saying and then do something dangerous, but that you get a lot of people who are going to manipulate and deceive and be just downright shitty and say, oh, this guy's telling people to risk their lives and do dangerous things and not take life seriously because it's a dream. That's not what I'm saying, clearly, but it's important for me to say that. Maybe for some of the few people that will take this too far, but more for the people who will try to throw mud on what I'm actually saying and discourage people from a temperate, stable exploration of reality without the mitigation of all the brainwashing that they've received throughout their life. So I want you to start there. Thank you, everyone, for the gifts. I want you to start there. Get up in the morning and imagine that you're in a higher level dream. Then sort of try to pull off all of the belief systems that were forced on you and live freely in a sort of mentally and philosophical way, and then see the world. And then consider that there's a way to dialogue with the greatest version of consciousness that is truthful, honest, courageous, just, etc. And pick something small in your life, maybe starting with your physical body. Maybe you have some shoulder pain because you tore some muscle in sports when you were in high school. Maybe you just feel generally under the weather, lethargic. I want you to pick one small thing. And based on everything that I just said to you, I want you to apply the possibility that you can perform a miracle on yourself. Not based on some scientific explanation, not based on something that a preacher or pastor told you, just based on the fact that that the universe itself is near limitless. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to check this question that might have been asked. Afros, I'm not seeing, I don't think I'm seeing this, the comment you put before the last comment, because it seems, the sentence seems incomplete. So if you wouldn't mind clarifying that for me. So there's not an easy way to try to explain what I'm saying to you because there's no cultural context, there's no framework that exists today. There was many frameworks that used to exist. Classical Greece, obviously ancient Egypt, many shamanic traditions, indigenous traditions have what I'm telling you, they have an entire system. They have training. Like in many shamanic and indigenous cultures, when a kid exhibits certain qualities that we here in the West um, give them medication for and throw them in psych wards, the shamans see as a gift, and they actually train that child to eventually replace him or her as the shaman because it's a gift. Spiritual sight. Spiritual sight here is seen as schizophrenia, and so they're punished. Over there, literally, like there's a great TED talk on this. Is it Spiritual Awakening or Psychosis? I believe is the title of the TED talk. It's very eye-opening. So there's entire systems in sciences and philosophies and like basically training and teachings to help people to see the world the way I'm giving you guys this little piece of homework to see the world. Like I'm really just kind of like scratching the surface of very intricate systems that were already in place. With the Greeks, it was things like the Lucid. I always mess this word up. Lucidian mysteries, stellar demons. With Egyptian, it was like the various types of magic that they had, and the transcendence of the mind, body, soul through a series of experiences that were connected to all of their what we think they thought were actual gods were actually principalities, psychological, physiological, and even energetic principalities of these, like Anubis or whoever. So, but we've lost all that in the context of this very nihilistic, materialistic, mundane, secular. There's nothing else besides what you can see, right? Money minded, all this nonsense. We've lost the magic. Oh, Bean's back patrol. Bean, I thought you got enough of a spanking last time. I didn't think you'd try again. We're not going to pay any attention to you this time though, because we spent enough time showing everyone your behavior and how to deal with people like you. And that's the only reason we gave you any attention, because we were using you as an example to run a clinic. And one more comment and we'll have to block you. So one more negative comment and we'll have to block you. If you actually contribute in some neutral or positive way, then we'll let you stay. So that's what I want you to start with. I want you to start with sort of suspending any sort of limiting beliefs. Hey, what's happening, Melly? Yeah, Michael, exactly. And I realized that the Pharisees come in many forms. They're not just spiritual, right? They're not just like religious Pharisees, right? You may ask a question, Matt, and I will try to do my best to answer. And I'm going to go back in a second after I finish this thought and check the other questions. Defects, if you would put that question back up for me, I'm almost done with my rant, and then I can start answering more questions, okay? On YouTube and TikTok. So suspend what everyone's been telling you about reality. I'm not telling you that doesn't mean you brush your teeth in the morning and you eat when you're hungry, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about these more metaphysical, philosophical treatises that have maybe defined your life. What's humanly possible? The extent of reality and the universe, the meaning of it, the cosmology, the mythology, et cetera, et cetera. Wake up tomorrow morning kind of with a newborn mind and perspective. It's going to be hard at first because you're going to keep on, when you see something, you'll give it its name, and then that name will connect to 3 books of biology that you read on trees. Let's say it's a tree. You see the tree, then the word tree comes in, and you think of the tree as, starting at the ground and ending right, where you can start to see the blue sky or whatever. Now, and then that will connect to stories you said, and that'll connect to memories that you had, maybe sitting under a tree, and then it'll connect to Newton and seeing the apple fall from the tree. You see? That's like 100 neuron firings in your brain, probably way more than that. just from looking at a tree. What we're trying to do is slow that down and just see the tree for what it actually is. It's like that painting that I forget who did it, where it's a spoon. It's a painting of a spoon, and it's called "This Is Not a Spoon." Not only is it not a spoon in the painting, it's a painting of a spoon, but what they're saying is, because it's really brilliant. Okay, so the artist knows that they're not a good artist knows that they're not painting something. When they do paint a picture of a mug, they're not painting a mug. They are constructing a series of colors that simulate dimension, shadow, light, etc. in such an organization that other people will recognize it as the object that exists in reality. But at the same time, there's this sort of microcosm, macrocosm thing happening, where also the spoon in real life is not a spoon, because the spoon in real life is only a spoon to English speaking people. And spoon is just a word that we've labeled the object. But the object was created clearly, obviously, to be held in. But the object is a direct manifestation out of a quality need of a five-fingered opposable thumb human being to take larger amounts of something like soup out. You see what I'm saying? So these are all manifestations of some kind of Tao and flow that's required or necessary. And then we tag it with things, and those tags begin to have other larger cultural context tags. And all these things are happening in your brain all the time. And so what I'm asking you to do is to slow all of that down in every moment and stop living in the context of a philosophy or a word, and allow yourself to believe that maybe this place is expansive, is alive, is conscious, is vibrant, is flowing electricity, energy all over the place, and has potentialities that could give rise to the performance of miracles, which we so desperately need right now to shift the world in the right direction. And so while doing all those things, I also want you to attempt to perform a mini miracle on yourself. Maybe you've got a small ailment, maybe something is weighing heavy on your heart. I want you to imagine that you have the ability to impress upon yourself and maybe request from God a mediation of the negative experience that resolves it in less time than it would normally. Exactly. Existence is a miracle in and of itself. Okay, this is the last thing I'll do, and I'll start answering questions. Be careful with what I'm about to tell you, because it can kind of shake you a little bit. So I'm not going to go very specific and very deep into this. And don't dive super deep into this right away. Skim the surface and then remind yourself, this is always the mantra, but I'm still here. I'm still here. Reality isn't falling apart. I'm still here. Okay. Remind yourself to do this when you start getting that anxious little, oh, okay. All right, Bean. That was the last time. That was the last time, bud. I'm sorry. You've been warned so many times. Gotta block you. I kind of liked Bean. I kind of liked Bean. But you keep giving people chances, even if they're fun and quirky, and there's this element of them that's likable, even if it's just the drama of them being around. They'll use that to their advantage to slowly kind of chip away at you. And then if they say, hey, stop, they'll stop for a little bit and they'll pull back a couple inches, and then they'll take a meter later on when you're not looking. And you got to kind of give them time to work on their shit, right? And maybe they come back a little bit more rehabilitated. Okay, so this is what this is about. So Shakespeare said, is it Shakespeare that said in Hamlet, to be or not to be, that is the question. There's something deeper happening there, probably because Francis Bacon might have been the ones who wrote Shakespeare, and Francis Bacon was on a whole nother level, right? Or maybe influenced Shakespeare to say that. To be or not to be, that is the question, is really this kind of like, it's very deeply esoteric. And maybe he did it accidentally because he stumbled upon it, or maybe because he was being influenced by one of the most brilliant esotericists of all time, Sir Francis Bacon. To be or not to be is the question which sort of symbolically, from our translation of it, is what happened when the demiurge or our reality came into being. It was actually the very urge of asking the question which turned nothingness into somethingness. Is what some, it's kind of like this first cause thing. Everyone's got something. God spoke the word, the primordial atom exploded. Nothingness had a rogue thought to be. These are sort of like three of the like first cause explanations of reality. So, but beyond that, how did nothingness contemplate? If God created the universe, who created God? And where did that primordial atom come from? Or whatever they're saying it is now, right? Because science still asks for a miracle, just like Terence McKenna said. Science acts like they're so logical and all that, but they still said, give us one miracle and we'll tell you everything else. No one has been able to give you a reasonable explanation for first cause. But from our thinking, there has to be a first cause. And yet, there can't possibly be. If there was nothing, at some point, if there was nothing, like really, you have to understand what nothing is. Nothing isn't a room with nothing in it. Nothing is nothing. No thoughts, no sound, no light, nothing that would give rise to something. And yet here we are. And if it was always here, how was it always here? With our human mind, the only conclusion we can come to is this is impossible. And yet we remain. And yet we are here. Yeah, we'll see. Say Sophia created God, aka Yaldabaoth. But those are just words. It is impossible for this to be here. And yet it is here, yet it remains, yet it persists. Despite the fact that if we sit here all day, we'll never be able to come up with a reasonable explanation to how the universe even existed in the first place. And yet here we are. Yes, the greatest miracle of all time, that we're even able to be here. And then you extrapolate out on all the other things. The fact that I'm having a conversation with you through a screen, making mouth noises you understand, which changes you psychologically, physiologically, biochemically, just by me making noises. I could say something to you that could ruin your day, or I could say something to you that could give you new life and passion for something that you like, some great project or idea that you suspended because you didn't believe in yourself. Every single one of those moments is a miracle. And when we begin to pull ourselves back from like this jaded, hurt, or cynical mindset because of all this nonsense being stuffed into our heads, whether or not the philosophy itself is cynical and nihilistic and negative, or that because we've been getting like really screwed over and conned with all these ideas that we've become nihilistic and cynical as a result, all that stuff pulls us away from the reality that we are existing ever presently in the most awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping, inexplicable miracle. And when we're in that state is when we can create, and when we can realize our full potential. And so that's my request from you. That's my homework that I would give you, to try to re-enter that state, which is the kingdom of heaven, that is always within you and always before you. It is never left. It is not on its way here. We don't need to build it. It's here. And the only thing that keeps us down is perspectives and attitudes, which have over time degraded because we've all been through a lot and we've forgotten how to heal from it. And all the people that still know how to heal from it, we've relegated to reservations and small plots of rainforest that we continue to knock down for farmland, as we do in like the least efficient versions of farming, while they themselves have incredible wisdom on how to interweave their needs and wants as human beings into nature in such a way that it produces beneficial results for nature and the human being. We've lost touch with all of that, which we know desperately need to save ourselves in the world. So try to tap into that. I hope I did a good job. I've never really talked about this thing in this way, so I know I probably could have done it better, and maybe we'll do another one of these and elaborate on some of these ideas in the future. But I hope that maybe turned some switches on, lit up some light bulbs and gave you some ideas so that maybe you come up with something 10 times better than what I just did. Maybe even tomorrow something hits you like, oh, like this is a good way to approach this. And then maybe you get a couple people to do it too. Yes, enlightenment used to be a luxury. It has become a necessity. Well said. Okay. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the support. And let's get into some questions. Dan muted. I am doing a lot of the same thing. As many of you know, I'm sort of in a TikTok battle, you might say, with somebody, but I'm not watching any of their videos. They're not going to live rent free in my head. So I'm not even doing that, let alone really not doing too much scrolling or anything either. Don't got time for it. I got time for what's good. I've got time for good conversations, healthy conversations, intelligent ones where we're lifting each other up. Okay, so let's see if we can find some questions here. All right, guys, just give me a second. I know everything's gonna get quiet for a second. Sovereign citizen. So when I talk about sovereign citizen, I'm not necessarily talking about that new movement of becoming actually sovereign. Although, I mean, I won't say too much on it, but it appears that it's effective. But we're always a sovereign citizen. The only thing that happens is we get convinced. We get convinced that we're not. You have so many rights that they try to convince you don't have. For one, every human being, every American citizen, we'll just talk about America, every American citizen absolutely has the right to reject every law and mandate that has been put into our system after the Constitution, because our government is technically defunct and has revoked has not made good on the promises that are made in the Constitution. And so because the government's breaking multiple rules and becoming unconstitutional, what that means is we are in agreement with the sovereign coercive power. That sovereign coercive power offers us certain things. We will give you this, that, and the third. We will give you protection and security, let's say. We will give you life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then when the CIA starts testing on American citizens without their consent and making them go crazy, they have violated that agreement. When they say no taxation without representation, it doesn't mean the representation of what the taxes mean. It means that when we pay taxes, those taxes power our representatives to do things for the country that are good for us. So when we pay taxes and we tell our representatives that we don't want all of our money going to bombing children in the Middle East, and they do it anyway, they have again broken the agreement. And so they null any promise that we offered to them in return for their offer. They're not doing any of the things they said they were going to do. They're breaking their promises, which means we don't have to uphold ours anymore, which means we don't have to pay taxes. We don't have to abide by, especially laws and mandates that are created by like lower principalities or even the higher ones. Okay, yeah, everyone's got to stay indoors. No, we don't. No, we don't. And if the government enforces power, uses power to like explicit power, enforces it on you, they're committing a crime. It's not because they have any sort of divine jurisdiction at that point. They've already broken their promises. They've broken the trade agreement. Therefore, you do not have to give back. And you don't not pay taxes to try to destroy the government. You don't pay taxes to put enough pressure on the government over time that they eventually concede and get back at the table to negotiate and compromise. You are always a sovereign citizen. Your ancestors made a choice to enter into an agreement with a sovereign coercive power, which is America, the United States. And by default, because you were born here, because of rules that were made before you existed, you're automatically subjected to this agreement without agreeing to it. That's also not lawful. You should have to agree. You should have to agree. Now, in an ideal world, the coercive power behaves itself and does the right things. And so you never have to think about it. You're happy to be a part of the situation because they're doing so damn good. But that's not the situation we live in now. So you're born a person, you're born a conscious being of the earth. And then immediately, social security number, get the fingerprints, take some blood, give them a couple of these things, right? You're being assaulted on multiple levels. And you are not ushered into this reality and received like a divine gift. You are seen as a product, you are seen as a liability, you're seen as a mouth to feed, all this other nonsense. You're not seen as a gift, and you're not seen as something that is a divine creation that should be respected, at least not in this country anymore, because we got a bunch of psychopaths and morally debased criminals running the country. So you're always a sovereign citizen. You're always a sovereign citizen. But based on the agreements you enter into, like for instance, if you accept all the things the government is doing to you, you're kind of entering into an agreement on a daily basis that that's okay, right? It's just like when you accept, the app's terms and conditions. We're gonna look at your shit. We're gonna be kind of like using a little bit of your processing power on your devices or whatever. You hit accept, you've entered into the agreement. But you can just delete the app and then you're out of the agreement. Unless, of course, they put like keylogger or some kind of fucking spyware on your, which, I wouldn't put it past some companies to do. But like, the idea is that you can disconnect from that agreement. Okay. Now, the issue with kind of entering into sovereignty is that, of course, the government can then take away all the things that it gives you. That's true. And so as we're doing this, it has to be organized and it has to be many of us at the same time. So the buffer time between when the government's playing hardball with us and when they fold because they've run out of resources and support, we want to shorten that. And we shorten that by expanding the amount of people that enter into resistance of the system, right? And we create an alternative system which sustains us for the period of time where the government's playing hardball and we're entering into negotiations for a new compromise for the relationship between the American citizen and the sovereign coercive power, which is the United States of America. You understand? So people say, well, they'll throw you in jail, they'll do this and then the third. Yeah, individually, individually, they're going to continue to be brutal bullies and tyrants. That's why this has to be slow, organized, not like, it's not violence, it's not physical damage to property. all that stuff that happened 2, 3 years ago with all these movements, that's to me, it's clearly them doing it to make us look bad. Or it's a good group, but then they throw that wild card in there. Maybe it's like a, plainclothes police officer or whatever. And then they throw a rock through a window, or they talk and someone's like, you know what? These guys, these motherfuckers, we got to do, you know what I mean? Like that. Like, I got a Molotov cocktail or two. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to come to the house. Like, that's real. We know that the government entraps, the FBI entraps. They'll put an idea in your head. They'll go into these groups and they'll try to cause chaos. They'll get homeless people drunk and throw them into the mix, and then they'll arrest everybody or whoever they want. They've done all the things I'm saying. I'm not making up. They've done these things. The thing that scares them the most is a peaceful, organized resistance and non-participation of the system, which will slowly starve it. As we create systems that keep us good, like, start growing a little more food in your backyard, whatever you can do. And then make relationship connections with members of your community, and then y'all kind of like trade goods and services and food and et cetera. And we're doing this on a small scale. And then we're having these conversations. And then we're brainstorming about how we can pull away from the system in such a way that they, they're not going to, they can't, turn off the electricity or turn off the water. Or even if they do, we have some sort of contingency plan. And that's how it gets done. Now, here's the next issue. This is another really important thing. Once we do that, or if we do that, we put ourselves in a vulnerable state as a country. So we also have at the same time be thinking about all the other countries that might take advantage of a moment of destabilization or vulnerability because we're renegotiating our relationship as American citizens with the country. Right? So what has to happen is it can't just happen here. It has to happen in America, in Russia, if necessary. I say if necessary because I don't really, we get lied to a lot about Russia, so I don't even know what it's like to be there. In Australia, I have an idea of what it's like to be there because, I've seen the videos and I have friends from Australia who have told me it's not so hot. It's kind of like what we're going through. In Canada, in Saudi Arabia, whatever it is, we have to be doing this collectively and globally. There has to be a good conversation happening. Yeah, and ever since I sent that video to TikTok because they took down a video that everything I said was completely legitimate. And it's things that are literally happening on Capitol Hill right now that I was like confirming and then asking people to support. I sent them, I made a video and then I sent them a message and I just said, everything I said in this video was true. They took it down, community guidelines, integrity, misinformation. It says, everything that I said in that video was true. And I said, trust me, the weight that you bear is unbearable. And then I had an account warning. Account warnings don't get taken off. It was gone. Within a couple hours, it was gone. The video was back up. And ever since then, I have not been getting messed with about anything. And usually I talk about these things. All of a sudden, we have issues on the internet connection. The app stops working, and that's not happening anymore. And I'm not going to question it too much. I'm just happy because I remember I said about 2 weeks ago, I'm like, you know what? I'm probably going to get kicked off of this thing. And it wasn't because I was trying to. It was because I was not going to hold my tongue anymore about anything. And you saw that series of videos I made. Every single one of those should have been taken down, not because there's anything untrue about them, but because they don't let that stuff hey, how you doing? They don't let that stuff stay on the channel. But since then, haven't gotten in trouble one time. I was ready to lose my account, to tell the truth a couple more times for all of you. And now, hey, how's it going, Jackie? I'm gonna touch base with you today, I promise. I have it scheduled in my mind to get back to you. Yeah, so now I'm gonna just tell the truth. I'm not being derogatory, I'm not being dishonest, I'm not inciting violence. I'm talking about ideas, none of which are dangerous, and I'm gonna continue doing that. And if it does come a time that I get kicked off, then like I said, will take this to a literal soapbox. I'll stand on a crate. I'll speak to anyone who would like to be spoken to. And that's how I live my life. I don't care about this nonsense anymore, right? The fuck does status mean? What is this money that you have to understand something. When an economy starts to collapse, like we hear stories. You hear stories about the wheelbarrows of money that they would have to bring in to buy a loaf of bread or something. You might have heard the stories out of Poland where like they were just literally adding zeros to the amounts of money that you need. Like, you know, something would be $1, then it'd be $10, then it'd be $100, then it'd be $1,000. And that was happening over the course of a very short period of time. And it's like you don't really see it coming. It's like a little hard and it's a little weird and things are inflating. And then it's very exponential. It's very exponential. I shouldn't say very. It's exponential. And it creeps up and then boom. Okay. What happened in Brazil just 3 or 4 years ago? I was friends with a couple of Brazilian guys. We were working. They had an animation company, and I was helping them to seed money for investors and stuff like that, and market and these sorts of things. And we just got really close. And one was a writer, he liked writing for film, and I did too. And so we spent some time in LA, and we met in Sacramento at a co-work place where, you know, entrepreneurs will come together. And then we took some trips down to LA, and then and we worked together, and then I worked with one of the members, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so I got to be with these guys for a couple of years, on and off conversation, meeting together, whatever. And so it's kind of eerie to look back at it now, because right when it started, they were like very happy. They had a lot of expectations about like how much they could grow this company. They were really talented guys, and they could go anywhere they wanted to go, right? Like the world was theirs. They were both young and really bright and just excited and happy. And in the course of like a year, as Brazil's economy collapsed, their inflation went 300%. And all of a sudden they had to like stop everything. Like everything. And you know, it kind of like took the light and life from what they were doing. And one just kind of went back to like they stabilized what they could with the business. I think they had to lay off some people, and they just kind of made the money they could make. The other guy kind of traveled the world and just became like a photographer and a videographer, and he found some peace. He kind of like became a nomad, and I think he really enjoyed it. But they lost everything. It was so quick. It was so quick. Now that was 300% inflation at that time. Like, we've pretty much gone through the 300%. This is something really important. You know, my heart goes out to a lot of I'm not trying to be critical here, and I don't want to like, I have some acquaintances on TikTok. A year ago, 2 years ago, man, psychologically, it was still hard. But physically, it wasn't terrible. You weren't running out of money all the time. You weren't having to do 10 hustles. People talk about, you know, have this many streams of income and all this. And sure, that's what you need to do now. But it's not like we talk like it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's us adapting to a system that's eating us alive. I love Gary Vaynerchuk on one side. I'm going to get back to what I was going to say about my acquaintances on TikTok. I love Gary Vaynerchuk on once he does that thing, right? It's like the reverse FU. So it must mean I love you or something. Or he does this during the speeches. It's like his move. I love it on one side because he inspires people to think outside of the box, to grow your life and see that there's kind of an infinite potential. Okay. But what Gary represents, not him as a person, but what his manifestation for what he does, he found a niche. It represents is the fact that the flow of water has been reduced to nearly nothing, and we're desperate. There's a video I think Gary shares, or it's connected to what Gary was saying about this kid that brought a couch that he found on the side of the road on the subway to get home to sell. And it was like applauded that he was like, look at that hustle mentality. In one very small niche way, yeah, like cool, man. Like you're willing to work for it. On another thing, it's so sad that he had to do that because it's not necessary. It is not necessary for us to be fucking scrambling for money and pulling furniture off the side of a fucking road, bringing it on a subway to go home and sell it on Facebook garage sale. This is fucking criminal. We're being treated like animals. And so, so I see some of my acquaintances and friends on TikTok, and we haven't connected as much because I've really cut myself off from everything. Not because I'm like mad at anybody or anything like that. It's more like, hey, just want to make sure, because people might just be intently listening, but nothing's come in over here really. I've got a few comments. I just want to make sure people's comments aren't being like blocked or something, because I'm seeing stuff on YouTube. And thank you everyone. Thank you everyone. But I just want to make sure maybe everyone just like kind of chilling. Okay, good, excellent. All right, cool. Just want to make sure, because look, it just paused out of nowhere. So I'm seeing a lot of my acquaintances and friends kind of scramble, and like everyone's trying to sell something still. And I'm not like judging them like they shouldn't want to make money, pay their bills and stuff like that. I'm not saying that I'm so cool because I'm like disconnecting from that. I'm still living off the good graces of you guys, off the good graces of people in my life. You know, we have friends locally here that they need help with physical work and all that, and they give us food and stuff. And it's like I'm finding ways to mitigate how I'm breaking away from the system, but I'm in some ways I'm still a burden, and I will be a burden to other people. But I'm trying to mitigate that and make that like the same burden Christ was on people, which was just give me a place to sleep and a little bit of food to eat, and that's all I ask, and I won't become a burden. That's I'm trying to transfer into that. And I'm not saying this is some holy. It's what Christ did, and it's what I think I should do, and I think it's what we need to do to be in a resistance, if not participation, with the tyrannical government. But I understand why lots of people can't do that. People have families and all that, and a lot of obligations, and some people are running companies that help everyone else eat and pay the bills. So that's not what I'm saying. But what I see is I see this scrambling. I see this people having to do 10 more things to make a little bit of fucking money. It's not okay. And as we allow that to be normal state, as we adapt to this difficult situation that is not organic, that is being architectured by people who are trying to create austerity so that they can have more, it only makes me sad. Only makes me sad to see, like, I can see it in their eyes. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're stressed. Spouses have probably been fighting with each other, right? Because what else can they do? Because they can't fight with the Federal Reserve. And it's not fair based on how great of citizens we are, by and large, paying our taxes, following the rules, doing everything that our ancestors, I would say ancestors, but 5, 6, 7 generations made the promise, and we have upheld that promise since. And the government has broken every promise that it made and has a million great excuses. And we scramble and we adapt and we applaud each other for our ability to adapt. But it is far more sad and sinister than it is beautiful. Yes, we're adaptable. Yes, like it's incredible what human beings can do with very little and turn that into a lot. But we're only having to do that because we're having an artificial pressure put on us. And we have such an incredible potential to reverse that. And we should really start getting to work on that. and enforcing truth, enforcing love, enforcing courage, enforcing stamping out tyranny in all forms. Finding ways to break those aspects of the money system which are viral and just steal from us like ticks. The Federal Reserve is a tick that siphons currency and time and happiness from all of us. The first thing we can do to reverse its success, great question. I've put up links on the link tree. I didn't personally put the links on, but it was a mutual idea. We put links on the link tree that will help you to find your local congressperson and senator. Write them a letter, send them an email, make a phone call, and ask them if they're going to support Thomas Massie's resolution to end the Federal Reserve. And explain to them why it's important, and explain to them why you won't be able to support them unless they support that. Step one. Step one. That's how we reverse one part of it. Yes, yes. I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right. Geji-sama. Like Terrence Howard said, everyone must come together like the Messiah for a day. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the what would Jesus do? In every moment, every day when you get up in the morning, could I be a little bit more like Christ? Or like a leader whose first and foremost priority is to be a servant to the world? And try to see how long you could take that. Maybe you only take it 5 seconds in the morning, and then you're back to, just kind of falling into the normal patterns. Maybe the next day you can do it for 5 minutes, and maybe the next day you can do it for 5 hours. Maybe you can do, and maybe eventually you can do it for 5 days straight. Be like a Messiah. Be a servant to the world, and be a leader in whatever way you can be a leader that's beneficial for you and the collective. Yeah, but the first thing you can do to reverse it is give your representatives phone calls and ask them if they're supporting the resolution that Thomas Massie has proposed to end the Federal Reserve. Thomas Massie might be the only legitimate politician on Capitol Hill. It's pretty safe to back whatever he's doing. He's got a pretty consistent record of doing the right thing. Constitutionally, for the American citizen. Oh, that's cool. Maybe Dr. Strangelove 86. I would say just give him a call and thank him. I'm sure he doesn't get any thank yous from any of his colleagues. So Dr. Strangelove, if you want to make that phone call and just send him some love, I think that would be he'd really appreciate it. So I don't want to end this on a negative note, but so I'm not going to. But all the people in here that are presidents and vice presidents and councilmen of Dr. Blitz's fan club, guys, you're getting to the point of delusion here. I explained myself so good, so well, so obvious. The guy lied over and over again. There was multiple things that he was not educated on, and he tried to pretend that he was. He got caught, and right now he's spinning he said ridiculous things. He used an incorrect version. We'll do this real quick, and then we're gonna let it go, because Dr. Blitz knows what he needs to do. If he wants to, I don't even know if he wants to have a debate or a conversation. It doesn't matter either way to me. Real quick, just so you can get an idea, if anyone's confused about what's happening here, Dr. Blitz tried to prove that God was a myth. He said he could prove that God was a myth because he said that God is supernatural, and supernatural is that which isn't real, that exists outside of reality, and all that isn't real, so God isn't real. That was his actual argument. To which I tried to explain to him that supernatural means that is beyond our understanding of nature, not outside of nature. You see, if supernatural was outside of all of reality and not real, then we would never have supernatural occurrences. Now, you can say whatever you want about what the supernatural occurrence is, but we have a category of things which we refer to as supernatural. Therefore, they have to exist inside of reality, inside of nature. They're just beyond our understanding of it. He wouldn't agree with it. He looked at the definition. He saw the definition was the same as mine. He's looking at it on the screen, and he still lied and said that wasn't the definition. He did that because he's purposely creating fake, phony, dishonest logic proofs to try to put doubt in people's heads about their own concept of God. He's sort of an agent of chaos that uses dishonesty and lies to forward their own false narratives that they must know are faulty, and yet they pursue them anyway, because I think he's found a niche audience that's just kind of like angry people that like to pretend they're smarter than other people. And so we capitalize on that by acting like an angry person who thinks they're better than everybody else. That's his issue. So when he got called out, he said, well, he was reading from a different dictionary. And then I read that dictionary and all the other dictionaries, and they all said the same thing I said. And then someone said, well, he's using the adjective and not the noun. And so you can see where these people's heads go. The man can't just admit that he used the incorrect definition of supernatural, so his argument doesn't work. That's what usually happens in an intelligent, healthy debate, is if someone's made a goof, if someone's used a definition improperly, they get corrected, they're like, okay, I'm sorry, you're right. That's what I was saying wasn't the definition of supernatural. And then we move on. This guy has turned it into a 2 or 3 week drama on his side. I could care less. I'm having fun making memes over here. And he's just spinning in circles. For what? He's just making himself look worse. And that was 1/10 of the ridiculousness of that debate I had with him on the live. People have been asking me if there's a video of it. It depends on if he recorded it and if he posted it, because it was on his live. So, you know, it's like there's nothing I can do besides meme at this point. I've already explained to everyone exactly what happened. And the reason I spent so much time is not because this guy's living rent-free in my head. I like to use these situations as examples for everyone, because there's a lot of people like that are absolutely dishonest and use word salads with fake definitions to try to win arguments. And then it can mess up with your head, because if they're gaslighting you, I mean, this guy was denying that physicists have said that UFOs appear to defy the laws of physics. And then he associated defy with break. I didn't say that UFOs were breaking the laws of physics. I said that when we look at them, some of the situations make even scientists say, wow, it appears to defy the laws of physics. Defy just means to challenge. And so there was all these little things, and he wouldn't stop. And he wouldn't stop talking, and he wouldn't stop asking 10 questions. And before I could answer the first question, there was another question. And he says, why aren't you asking my questions? Meanwhile, he's talking 100% of the time, and I can't even finish a sentence. The guy's belligerent. He's belligerent. He's dishonest. He's so arrogant that it's embarrassing to see someone who spends that little time actually researching things and understanding things deeply and having good conversations with intelligent people, and then to act the way he does, like he's a god among the intellectuals. It's pathetic, it's sad, and it would be okay if he wasn't such a jerk about it, right? Like, it's one thing to be ignorant, it's another thing to be ignorant and then mean to other people. So that's all I'll say about that. Yeah, so it's like none of those things bother me. These people, like, I don't know. I hope Dr. Blitz is paying you guys, right? Because if you're wasting this much of your life to defend some rando who, like anybody who is actually like an intelligent physicist, like no intelligent physicist would respect that guy. The guy said that the Big Bang was proven. Those were his words. Like he can't be respected by anybody respectable in his field. And you guys are over here wasting time and alive to try to goat and tease me. I could care less. You're the one wasting your life away on things that don't matter. So have fun, because either you'll get blocked or just ignored. And you're giving me play. You're sending this video up higher on the algorithm. Like when you comment on my video, it just makes it more likely for more people to see it. So thank you. And because I'm not even paying you to do any of this. So yeah, please continue to comment and give me more more juice in the algorithm. All right, so let's end with any question. Any question, we'll do one more question. I want to thank all the haters for the comments that are boosting this up on the algorithm. When is my new meditation tape dropping? Yeah, so I've suspended the business as an act of resistance and protest. I'd like to drop the meditation, and maybe eventually I'll just drop it for free. But I've had to relocate my focus on like doing a full protest and resistance to the financial system. And so the business is on pause for the time being. I know I said I was going to release it, and lots of look. I got a message. To me, it was divine, and it told me it's time. And when it said it was time, I knew immediately what that meant. And so the meditations, the books, the classes are on pause. I said I was going to break from the financial system, and I was going to protest the Federal Reserve. Although it's very hard, and I keep on trying to talk myself back into, why don't you just get like back to like regular work, and you can do marketing and da 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 and all that. So technically, it wouldn't be. I'm like, no. I said I was going to stop. I said I was going to stop interfacing with a system that I keep telling everyone is wrong and evil, and we shouldn't be participating in it. As hard and as scary as that is, I have to at least give it a shot. And I'm going to catalog that for as long as I can, and hopefully I can inspire enough people to do this that we, like I said, put enough pressure on the government and the Federal Reserve that we can renegotiate our relationship with the sovereign coercive power. Yeah, so for now everything's on pause, and I apologize for the meditation not coming out and the classes not coming out anymore, but I'm taking this very seriously. This walking like Christ, this becoming a fisher of men and women. It's the same way Michael Jordan said, God put me on earth to play basketball. And obviously we're being kind of like colloquial and lower resolution when we say that phrase, but because it means a lot more than it's like, God put me here literally to play basketball. But if I was put on earth to do something, it was to inspire love, honesty, courage, truth, justice, fair play, equal opportunity for all human beings on the planet. And I've decided to go pro, whatever that means. So that's why you haven't seen any new stuff anymore. And that's why everything's been on pause. It's because I'm preparing to take that leap, whatever that looks like. I have no idea what that looks like. It's terrifying. Yeah, so yeah, I really appreciate Cup Cucker and Gnostic Pope. Those are homies. I appreciate them. I've had the the opportunity to sit down with Gnostic Pope. We were able to sit down about a year ago, just for lunch. I was passing through, and really cool, genuine guy. Like even cooler in person. And like when he has like that space to actually really talk about the depth of these things. Don't worry, he didn't give me any of the secrets. If there's any Masons watching, he didn't tell me anything, and he didn't give me any handshakes or anything like that. But we discussed these esoteric principles and these deeper ramifications of the flow and of causality of things, like when you say something or do something, and all these different components that affect people's psychic being and their physical being, and the flow of the zeitgeist of reality and culture. And very cool guy. And Cub, although I don't know him super well, we haven't connected on any podcast or anything like that. Great guy, genuine guy. He's not trying to feed you a doctrine or anything like that. He really is one of those guys just like, what if this is possible? What if that's possible? And I love people like that, because they're not, like I said, they're not trying to sell you a bridge in Jerusalem or Brooklyn. They're just trying to get you to think outside the box, which I think is always helpful. So yeah, I appreciate those guys. Yeah, all that stuff for sure. Yeah, so I mean that's and I salute you too. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if there's any more doorknob questions, I know I didn't get to that too many. I really got into that rant, but I think that was probably important. How is the financial system responding to this protest? Oh, okay, I think that was a troll comment. But yeah, of course, I mean, they're not going to respond too well to just one person doing it. What are my thoughts on crypto? Crypto could be useful. So could blockchain and ETFs. Or what are they called? EFTs, NFTs. They could be useful, and they're probably an evolution of money. That would be, especially blockchain. Blockchain is really the technology that we need. We don't need the cryptocurrency or the NFTs. The NFTs are helpful for artists to create a sort of digitally gridlocked copyright on their original material in such a way that no one can really steal from them, whether it's stealing the intellectual property or stealing the product afterwards. Is a really great way to integrate NFTs into blockchain, so that products and services have a really tight tight restrictions just based on the digital architecture. So we don't need tons of regulations, and we don't need people to behave themselves. They have to behave themselves. But like the larger cryptocurrency market is no different than the traditional market right now, because people can't behave themselves. Same people putting in fake news so that people will pump something and then they dump theirs, and then they make a bunch of money and a bunch of people are screwed. So we have the same sorts of problems with the cryptocurrency market that we have with the traditional. And on top of that, of course, is the government sort of being like, well, we got to make a crypto. Shut up. So it's not going to fix our problems. Yes, it's a better architecture. Yes, when you have cryptocurrency, you don't have a store of value, but you actually also you can have at the same time a functional digital product, and then you can have a currency in Web3, like for Ethereum, for instance, right? So Ethereum can be used as a sort of gas. But that's like, I don't know if they still use that word, but essentially it's like you can use Ethereum as like a sort of token to operate on Web3. Right, but it's also a tradable commodity. And so what cryptocurrency has done at one level, this is what's really interesting about it, is cryptocurrency merges all the markets, many of the markets together, right? Because this can operate as a currency, but because we're in the digital world, the currency can also have a functional purpose based on the architecture of its coding. And so the currency can also do something, like functionally in the digital world, while also being able to be traded. And so that has lots of implications for efficiency and effectiveness and all that. And then blockchain has a lot of implications for ethics. If everything's blockchained in, you can't really screw with it. It's nearly impossible to mess with a blockchain code of information, to screw with the information and change it, because every new layer is dependent on the structure of all the layers, right down to the hash codes that happened before. So it's like if if you had like a bunch of different shaped little beads, right, and you put them all into a column, and then you laid one more bead on, and wherever the bead was, you'd have an exact position of where the bead was at every plank, like to the exactness of the Planck length of space, recording its position and the value and the information that comes off it. And if you remove one of those beads, no matter where it was, and everything shifted, then that would be in a different position, and you could realize that there's no more proof of work, I think it's called, in the cryptocurrency world. So there's lots of really positive implications, but we can't overlay this system over the broken system. Understand that cryptocurrency isn't going to replace the traditional markets. It's not going to replace money. It's going to be overlaid on top of old markets, and then we're going to take out pieces of it and then integrate it further and further and further. And then slowly, like, old money will be legacy, old markets will be legacy, but they'll be aged out slowly as the integration of the new systems come in. But if we don't get rid of the Federal Reserve, if we don't massively reform the financial district, not only for its culture and ethics, but for many of the lack of regulations that they have now, that it's just going to be those same things on steroids, because then the Federal Reserve and the government control proof of stake. And then they find all these different ways to make it so you don't have any freedom to do anything with your money. Kind of like with the rumors that come out of China with social credit. So all these things can be great, but lots of things can be great. Nuclear fission's got nuclear reactors and lots of energy, but they also have nuclear bombs. So it's all about how we use it. So look, we keep having technological revolutions, and we only seem to be barreling ourselves more into a dystopia. What we need is a psychological, spiritual, philosophical, emotional revolution of how we conduct ourselves as individuals, as members of society, as a collective. And if we don't do that, none of these technologies are going to work. They're all going to be destructive, because we're going to be the ones holding it. We're still going to be acting like toddlers with a handgun. That's the real issue. So that's what I would say in general about cryptocurrency and all that. Yeah, I mean, I was there with the when cryptocurrency was like skyrocketing, and it was like almost hard to lose money on it. I made a fair amount of money, and I figured out like I gamed it. Like I gamed the whole thing. It was actually starting to get easy, and then it was that late December, maybe 2016, 2017, when the whole thing crashed. Right. So that was the end of making money on it for a long time. And now it's stabilized a little bit. It's still a little bit of a wild west, but it was nothing like back then, man. I make a joke, because people say the best money is drug money, right? Like it's not legal, and I'm not saying anybody should do that, but that's like the phrase. And when the crypto thing was happening, it says crypto money is better than drug money, for sure, which should tell you something, right? That's the phrase. That's what I've heard. XRP is totally. So there was a drama with XRP. XRP, I think, is actually what they're going to use as sort of a segue into government currency. I wouldn't trust XRP for 1 second. What I would do, I mean, I wrote like a small book on this, like understanding how to like invest in the crypto markets and how to understand how to invest and which ones you should invest in and why. And even if you can invest in shit coins, but you should have a couple parameters even with shit coins. And one of the things I would do is as I was writing the book, I would test out, like I would operate these systems that I had, and then I'd produce like case studies in the book. And And so it was called Major Coin. Major Coin is the name. It's just my book. I didn't publish it. It's still sitting somewhere in one of my Google Drives. It's called Major Coin, and it just kind of teaches you how to see traditional and crypto markets and use a series of like a protocol that helps you to see, okay, what's the marketing like? Like literally, like I like in the book, I would say, now just take the image of the coin, take the branding of it. What does it make you feel? Do you feel trust? Do you feel confidence? Or do you feel concern that they don't know what the fuck they're doing? And then I would say, okay, now take the name. What does the name mean? What does the word mean? How does that connect to the branding? And then so now you're doing homework. You're like, okay, so how much work are they doing in the background? And then I would get on Reddit, because many of these people were going to Reddit to market their product. And I would try to talk to the CEOs. And I would just have a conversation with them if I could. And I'd be like, or whatever higher ups I can get my hands on. And you know, taking a look at their white paper, but then, you know, maybe developing some questions about the white paper and be like, okay, let me talk to one of these people who are running, you know, IT or whatever it is. And I just ask them questions like, well, what's the purpose of this? You know what I mean? And and who's your marketing guy? And because sometimes I could tell they didn't have a marketing person. Right. So sometimes I would even say, hey, I'll market for you. You know, I was also, you know, I was hustling, trying to make money 10 ways. And so I would just be like, you know, have they put in the time and effort to hire someone to give them a good logo? Why is that important? Because if they're going to put that much work into that one aspect, it's more than likely that they're putting work into the actual architecture of the coding, the vision for what they're actually going to do. And then of course I'd say, well, what does this coin do? Because if you just, if all it is that you're just putting on the market to be a traded commodity or whatever, then you're useless, right? You'll make money now, but you won't make money in the long term. So it might be a short-term shitcoin investment, something like that. Anyways, long story short, I start looking into XRP. Then I can't remember much of the details, but the more I saw this, the more I was like, oh, this guy seems to be like kind of like a company government man. And there was another coin called Stellar Lumens. The lumens was like the word, like what the coin was called, and it was like Stellar was the name of the company. And all these guys were like half bullshitting, banking the unbanked and all this other shit. Some of those people kind of meant it, but you know, everyone was just trying to pick like the most, like the thing that would everyone would be like, oh wow, yeah, XLM, yeah. So man, I let it go, but I had 50,000 in XLM when it was at 15 cents. And then I was just going to hold it. Like, this is going to go to $1. And my friends were like, it's not going to go in a second. Now, I ultimately made the decision, but they apologized to me profusely when it got to $1. And I did not have 50,000 of them in there anymore. But anyways, yeah. So anyways, XRP and XLM were kind of like, and XRP just got started getting all this clout and support, and they started making these like kind of like little government contracts, and XRP started to stabilize alongside the dollar, and that's when I started becoming suspicious that XRP seemed to me to be some kind of bridge to government cryptocurrency. And so for me, it's like, yeah, they're probably just like bought and paid for, my opinion. So I'm anti-XRP. But right now I'm anti-crypto completely. Oh wow, we've been going for 2 hours. Look, guys, I've probably incriminated myself 3 times here or something. And I'm joking, of course. But and talk about a bunch of things that, you know, are fun to talk about, but at the same time, crypto's not the answer. Blockchain can be an answer in the future, but it's not an answer right now. NFTs can be a really great answer for the future, especially for artists and producers, or artists and creators. But it's not the answer right now, because we're at war with the human soul. We're at war for the human soul. Some are at war with it. We need a psychological, emotional, spiritual revolution, not a technological one. We're always having technological revolutions, and we don't know what the hell to do with the technology. So we end up doing terrible things with it. If we want to talk about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we can do it all day. But how about we talk about smart cruise missiles and a million Iraqi civilians dead for the pursuit of oil and regional control of the Middle East? This is pure evil. They did not go over there because they were worried that Saddam Hussein was going to do anything. The whole invasion of Iraq was predicated on a lie that we're all now aware was a lie. That's what we do with technology right now. Not all of us, but there's enough of us. So it's like, you know, technology is cool, man, but it's not going to solve anything. It seems to only be empowering people who already have too much of it anyway. Yeah. So it's, yeah, I think the focus needs to shift away from any of these technologies. Yeah, technology is supposed to be a tool, and it's not supposed to be used as a weapon all the time. And we shouldn't be trying to weaponize it. That's the thing, is the first people who get their hands on technology, interestingly enough, is the porn industry and arms industries. Sex and death. Very Jungian. But that's the case. Sex and death, man, because we haven't dealt with our primal urges yet. And so our greatest technology gets to be used first, literally. If the first ones to use like 4K and virtual reality was after the military, it was porn industry. Death, sex. And that's the issue, is we're so still mostly in our amygdala and the reptilian brain and our animal nature. Yeah, very Freudian, really. Yeah. More than it is Jung, because Jung's inspired by Freud, clearly. Yeah. And so we're still there collectively. Now you're not. It's not your fault that Lockheed Martin wants to increase its stocks this year, so it's going to have Nikki Haley write names of whatever on bombs that kill children in the Gaza Strip. But but you know, it's like, I think we should take as much responsibility as we can to raise awareness to it, to resist it, because these are monsters of people. Maybe they can be rehabilitated, but the first thing they have to do is be disempowered. How do we do that? Well, the first thing we do is like not give them any. Stop voting for these fucking morons, for these creeps. Man, it's like, I'm not into the reptilian conspiracy, but they're acting like reptiles. Why? Because they're in their amygdala, the reptilian brain. So they're essentially reptile people in the sense that they only operate in that first brain. It's our jobs to tap into the neocortex so that we stop doing just fight or flight. Yeah, she wrote finish them. She's an evil woman because she knows that she's not, that bomb isn't being delivered to Hamas. She also knows that Hamas is Mossad. Anyway. You know, Netanyahu said, "This is our 9/11. You bet your ass it is." For everyone that knows what 9/11 actually was. That's what he was saying. These people are not only criminally evil, they think it's fucking funny. Right? I'm on the side of humanity. I'm on the side of what's reasonable. You know what I mean? Like, there's no side. You don't take political sides on this. You don't take nations' sides on this. This is about human beings and being reasonable. Let me tell you something. We won't go too much into this because, you know how it is. That country over there that's having people write shit on bombs that kill people. has one of the most powerful intelligence arrays in the world and in human history. They are intrinsic allies with the country that has the most intelligent or most powerful intelligence arrays. You're telling me that they're making mistakes by blowing up hospitals that they thought people were in? Both of these countries that are aligned can zap these people from space, can read individual heartbeats and know who the person is. We have no clue the extent of their technology. And they are pretending as if they can't send in small cells, small operating teams to destroy this alleged organization. It's a lie. They can easily do this precise with the scalpel, and they're using a blunt hammer and blindfolding themselves purposely because they are trying to destroy those people because they are in the way of real estate. Period. That's what's happening there. Right? That should be obvious. And if it's not obvious to you, you've got to take a long look in the mirror. Right? Because I have to wonder how this isn't obvious to you. That a genocide's happening. Period. Period. It's evil at a level that I can barely comprehend, being that we've already done genocides. We already agreed that wasn't fucking cool. And now we've got one on television. And people are applauding it. We're in a bad way right now. And when we're in a bad way, it's even more important that the few people that can still see that we're in clown world have the courage to always speak up. And yes, they want the temple. They're religious zealots and lunatics who really think that they're ushering something in because they are trying to take Al-Aqsa. That's exactly what they're trying to do. And because that is the divine real estate, right? That's where the light of heaven from God comes down, whatever that means exactly. But there's definitely some strange esoteric things happening in that region. And yeah, so they want real estate, and they are willing to do absolutely anything to get it. And what they did was they manufactured, at least partially. I'm not going to even say the date, but everyone knows because we keep on trying to get it propagandized and brainwashed in our heads. And they put up murals for one group of innocent people, but they don't put up murals for the other group of innocent people. So you know that they're evil psychopaths. Because if human life was important to them, they would be standing up for all the innocent human life. They wouldn't be making excuses for one side and not the other. It's so backwards and evil. And it's on television. Yeah, I'm absolutely disgusted by it on a daily basis. But then I just do what I can to put all of those psychopaths in a box. Ben Shapiro, put all the cowards in a box. Jordan Peterson. I used to like Jordan Peterson quite a bit, and then he showed his true colors a couple times with what's been happening recently. And I can't fault him too much because I don't know his story, and I don't know if he was actually what happened to him when he had to go to Russia, if that wasn't nefarious. That maybe I'm not going to say too much because that might be going too far. I might get flagged for that, but something might have happened to him, and it might have not been organic, and I can see where maybe he's more careful now. But if that's the case, then just shut the fuck up. Don't completely spoil all the beautiful things that you did and wreck a legacy. of setting a lot of people straight in the right direction to only show us that when push come to shove, you got a breaking point too, and you aren't willing to straighten yourself out and make your own fucking bed, you know? So that's how I feel about that. Ben Shapiro is a complete psychopath. I love Candace Owens. She don't give a fuck, man. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Truth matters to her. She makes her pretty awesome. So I really respect her in what she did. I respect anybody who puts the watermelon emoji on, who speaks out about this. You know what I mean? Guess who you are. Guess who all of you are that stand up for this. You're the people that would have stood up for it in Nazi Germany. You're the people who would have stood up for it when it was the Native Americans. You're the people that would have stood up for it when it was the African Americans. Now you know. Because there is so much pressure and punishment for speaking out about these things. So if you're speaking out about it, you're actually one of the good ones. Not all these fucking morons who went around for the last 10 years talk about how woke they are and they're fighting for rights and they put the little black picture on their IG because they're standing up for BLM. They're all full of shit. Because as soon as Palestine happened, and I'm not talking about all of them, because there's a lot of sincere people that were supporting some of these groups, but maybe they were misinformed about certain aspects of it. But all these people that were faking to be awoke, as soon as it's about Israel, man, did they start dropping off. Didn't they? Because it was never real. They were never like actually caring about anybody. They were trying to look cool. They were fitting in with the narrative. And when the narrative said, bomb innocent Palestinians, they went along with that too. So if anyone's still here, standing up for human life, remember that there's a really good chance that you would have been one of those folks back then that were doing the right thing. That you're that fucking guy in that picture where everyone's doing this and that he's like this. Be that guy. And if you're a girl, be the girl version of that guy in that poster. So congratulations. You are beautiful people. And they do not sing your songs today, but I promise you one day they will. Love you guys. I'm gonna head out. It's been 2 hours, so I'm gonna go chill out. This was really nice. We kind of went all over the place with the conversation. I think that's cool. Don't give up. Don't stop fighting for what's right. I know it's painful. I know it's tough, but you see, I'm doing it. I'm not doing it perfectly, and I don't want any pats on the back. I'm just trying to be an example to remind you that you're not alone. And as you can see in the comments, you're definitely not alone, right? We're out here. Remember that. You got support. You're the minority, but you're the minority that matters. You're the minority that eventually moves the mountain. So, yeah. Agassi, nice to see you, man. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm going to head out of here. Y'all have a wonderful night. We'll do this again soon. Okay? All right. Peace and love.